Hi everybody. Welcome back to another video on my Storytime channel. So, I read the first book of the Left Behind the Kids series in the previous videos. I finished book 1 of the Left Behind the Kids series, and now I'm on book 2 of the Left Behind the Kids series. It's truly an amazing series. I recommend this series to children, for entertainment purposes, This series truly isn't entertaining, regardless of how you feel about religion. It is entertaining. I will say that. I personally find the series entertaining, and I find it, enthralling. So that's just what I personally feel. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, continue reading the series. Here's the synopsis of Book 2 Left Behind the Kids series, Second Chance. Faced with the truth behind the disappearances, Judd, Vicky, Lionel, and Ryan have decisions to make. Will they accept Christ's forgiveness, or will they blame God for abandoning them and taking away their families? While the others are making their decisions, Lionel gets a stirring message from his Uncle Andre. Before his uncle is going to take his own life, Lionel rushes to Chicago, praying to reach Andre before it's too late. In the new series based on the best-selling book Left Behind, Jerry B. Jenkins and Tim LaHaye present the rapture and tribulation through the eyes of 4 young friends, Judd, Vicky, Lionel, and Ryan. As the world falls in around them, they band together to find faith and fight the evil forces that threaten their lives. So yeah, that's the synopsis of book 2 of the Left Behind the Kids series. And let's continue reading. Chapter 1, New Hope. Judd Thompson Jr. had always sized up situations quickly. It occurred to him that of the 4 kids who had fled to nearby New Hope Village Church during the greatest crisis the world ever see, he was the oldest. The redhead, the only girl, had a hard, bitter edge to her, but still, if Judd had to guess, he would have said she was younger than he was. What did he care? How could he ever care about anything anymore? The end of the world, at least the world as he knew it, had come. Millions all over the world had disappeared right out of their clothes, leaving everything but flesh and bone behind. It wasn't that Judd didn't know what had happened. He knew all too well, as he heard in church and Sunday school and at home his whole life. Jesus Christ had come back to rapture his church, and Judd had been left behind. He even knew why. It didn't take the earnest visitation pastor of New Hope Village Church, Bruce Barnes, to explain that. Of all things, Pastor Barnes himself had been left behind. Bruce Barnes has spent the last several minutes telling Judd and the other 3 shell-shocked kids his own story. He finished by telling them there was still hope. Life would be miserable from now on, of course, and they would be alone except for other new believers, but it was not too late for them to come to Christ. Bruce urged him to think about it and not to waste much time. The world had become dangerous overnight. With so many Christians disappearing from important jobs, the result was chaos. No any guarantees. Life was fragile. Judd was impressed that Bruce seemed so eager to convince them that their only hope now was to trust Christ. Judd knew it was the truth. He had to face himself, and he didn't like what he saw. His whole look, the way he carried himself, the me-first attitude, the secret that he'd never really become a Christian, all those things sickened him now. Why had he wanted to appear so old? Why was it so important for him to know where he fit in every crowd? Everything that ever mattered to him now seemed ridiculous. He had been a tough guy, a big shot, the one with all the plans and schemes. He had stolen his dad's credit card and bought phone identification papers that he was old enough to travel on his own. Yeah, Judd thought, I was a real player. But though Judd had come to some hard realizations about himself, he still had a major problem. There was no question that Bruce was right. Judd didn't want to live without his family and without Christ. Though he knew his family every chance, and he could have been in heaven with his parents and brother and sister right then, everything in him still fought to blame somebody else. But whom could he blame? His parents had been wonderful examples to him. Even his little brother had recently asked Judd if he still loved Jesus. If he couldn't blame his family and he didn't want to blame himself, that left only God. He knew there was no future in blaming a perfect and holy God. But right then, he had to admit that he didn't much care for God's plan. Whatever happened to the idea that God loved everybody, didn't want anybody to die and go to hell. What kind of a God would leave a 16-year-old kid without his family? Judd knew he wasn't thinking straight. In fact, he had to admit that he was being ridiculous. But just then, he didn't like God very much. He was mad at God because there was no one else to be mad at. Besides, Judd was grieving. No, his family had not died, but they might as well have. He was glad for them, he guessed, but they had gotten the reward for believing. But that was a little comfort to him. Bruce Barnes asked the 4 kids to introduce themselves and talk about themselves a bit. Judd didn't see the point of that. Bruce began with the youngest boy, the little blonde who appeared stocky and athletic. Judd was reminded of his own little brother, Mark. Mark and Marcy were twins, 9 years old. Both had been tremendously athletic. While Judd lost interest in sports in the Little League, Mark and Marcy had seemed interested in every sport imaginable. They had both been dark-haired and younger and smaller than Ryan Daly, but still Judd found it hard to listen to the boy without thinking of them both. Already he missed them more than he could say, but being around someone even near their age cut like a knife deep into his heart. Ryan was telling a story just above a whisper. Jude could tell the boy had spent a lot of time crying that day. No doubt there'd be no more tears until he could cry no more. I don't know what I think about all this stuff you've been saying, Mr. Barnes. If it's true, I don't think either of my parents went to heaven. For sure my mom didn't because she was killed on the road sometime this morning. My dad listened with the passengers that went down the plane crash. I don't think he would have been one of those who disappeared. I mean, he was great and I loved him, but he never said anything about being a Christian or even going to church. Ryan told about waking up to find his mother's note and then hearing from the police about her death. When he stopped and buried his head in his hands, Bruce Barnes leaned forward to put a hand on his shoulder. So you've never ever been in church before? Well, not never, Ryan managed, raising his head. Someone invited me to one of those Bible school things they have in the summertime at church once. Vacation Bible School, Bruce said. Yeah, that's it. But a really little bit that I don't remember much about it. My friend, his dad's an airline pilot, wanted me to go to church with him here. I never did. And who was that? His name was Ramey Steele. You tried to tell me all about this the way you just did. I thought he was nuts. What do you think now, Ryan? With that, Ryan buried his face in his hands again and sobbed. Bruce began to ask him something, but Ryan wrenched away and shook his head. Judd thought he knew exactly how Ryan felt. Bruce turned to Lionel Washington. Judd was the lanky young boy with the smooth face, chocolate complexion, and sad expressionless since they had begun. His wide, dark eyes seemed to rarely blink. He merely sat forward, his chin resting on his fist, leaning, listening. Judd couldn't tell if he was interested or not, but something had brought him here. There. Bruce asked Lionel if he knew any of the others. No, my sister Clarice knew Vicky here. They rode the school bus together. How do you feel about all this? Bruce said. Oh, Lionel said, this is nothing new to me. I knew exactly what happened. You're right, we all missed it. The real Christians have gone to heaven, and we've all been left behind. Ryan leaped from his seat and ran out, shouting through his sobs. It's not fair! It's not fair! This is crazy! Why would God do this? Judd, Bruce, Vicky, and Lionel watched him go. Aren't you going to stop him, Judd asked Bruce? Bruce shook his head. He'll be back. Where else does he have to go? Lionel, who seemed to Judd to have been shaken by Ryan's quick exit, finished his own story of having grown up in a Christian family and gone to church all his life, only to never have made a true decision himself to become a follower of Christ. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I can't say I'm surprised or that I didn't get exactly what I deserved. I don't know if I believe there's really still a second chance, but if there is, I want it. Believe me, there is a second chance, Bruce said. I think that's something you want to take advantage of right away, don't you? You better believe I already prayed the prayer, Lionel said. That's what you mean. I told God I was sorry, begged his forgiveness, and baptized him to save me once and for all. You're saying it's not too late? That's what I'm saying. Welcome to the family. Tell you the truth, sir, Lionel said. I'd rather be in heaven with my own family right now. You and me both, Bruce said. Judd was on how much he and Lionel had in common, though they'd never seen each other before. Ever even seen each other before. Lionel, like Judd, also had a younger brother and sister, and Judd and Lionel had been raised in the church by Christian families. Now it was Vicky's turn. Well, she began with a query voice. I guess I should have known better, too. Judd knows how young and scared she sounded for someone who said she was 14 years old. Of course, he felt very young and scared himself just then, but she looked like a tough girl. Whatever had been to her seemed to have been stolen away with her when her mother, father, and little sister had been raptured. She told her story about growing up in the trailer park, about the weekend beer brawls and dances that had one time seemingly out of the blue begun with an evangelist preaching for just a few minutes and resulted in their parents becoming Christians. I saw big changes in their lives, Vicky admitted, but actually I hated it. I hated church, didn't want to have anything to do with religion. They kept telling me it wasn't religion, it was Jesus, but I didn't see the difference. Now you do, of course, Bruce said. Of course, she said. Forgive me for being pushy, Bruce said. What are you going to do about it now? Vicky looked down and busied herself tracing a pattern on the floor with the toe of her shoe. Actually, even though I know you're right, I just don't want to make a decision like this while I'm still in shock. Bruce seemed to be trying to gently push her, seeing that despite the trauma she had just been through, she really shouldn't take more time. You know the truth. That makes you responsibility to act upon it. I know, she whispered. She would not return his gaze. Her body seemed rigid, and just as if she was through listening or talking about it. He was surprised when she looked up and he was listening when he was listening to tell the story. She kept his account short. He really imagined he too been raised in a Christian home and knew exactly what happened. He told of his plan to run away from home, be his own person, and how it'll come to crashing down on him when the Raptor girl was on a plane over the Atlantic on the way to London. I have to say, though, Pastor Barnes, I feel like Vicky here. I know what I'm supposed to do, what I should do, and what I'm sure I will do. But I just feel too much pressure. I can't hardly get around my mind the fact that I'll never see my family again. Bruce stood and moved near to Judd. Don't you kids see? That's my point. If I'm right, a 7-year period of tribulation begins soon. It's unlikely any of us will live through it. We better be prepared to see God, or we'll wind up without him for all of eternity. Judd knew Vicky was right. Bruce is right. But he caught Vicky's glance through the two of them, was still determined not to be pushed. He only hoped it wasn't simply a pride thing. He was pretty sure it wasn't. He was way past pride now. I'm sorry, Pastor Barnes, but I just need more time to deal with all this, Judd said. I'm sorry, Pastor Barnes, but I just need more time to deal with all this, Judd said. Me too, Vicky said. Don't be waiting too long now, Lionel said. I waited too long as it is. I couldn't have said it better myself, Bruce said. So yeah, that's the first chapter of of Left Behind the Kids, Book 2, Second Chance, Chapter 1, New Hope. And take care, everybody. Another video for my Storytime channel. Take care, everybody.